My name is Kara Miller. I'm 30 years old. If you'd walked into my apartment that night, you might have thought it looked peaceful. Candles flickering on the counter, the hum of the city outside, the quiet rhythm of two people who had learned how to avoid real conversations. But under that calm, something in me had already cracked. Daniel was on the couch, scrolling through his phone, pretending not to notice how long I'd been staring at the email on my laptop. The subject line read, Director of Analytics, offer letter attached. It wasn't just a promotion. It was the promotion, the kind that changes your entire life. Salary jump, equity, a team of my own. Seattle. I looked at Daniel, waiting for the right moment. He'd always said he wanted what was best for me, but I'd learned over the years that what he really meant was what's best for us, which usually translated to what works for him. I closed my laptop gently. Hey, I said, careful, casual. They offered me the job. He looked up. What job? The one I interviewed for last month. The Seattle one. The director position. A pause, his brow furrowed. You're not serious. I am. It's an incredible opportunity. They're doing groundbreaking work in patient outcomes. The pay, the team, it's everything I've worked for. Daniel set his phone down, slowly, as if he were about to negotiate a merger, not a life. Kara, you know I can't move. My family's here. My clients are here. My life is here. I know, I said quietly. I'm not asking you to move. We could do long distance for a year while you figure things out. I'd fly back, or you could come visit. He cut me off. Long distance doesn't work. You'd just end up resenting me. Or worse, you'd meet someone out there and realize I was holding you back. I opened my mouth to argue, but he leaned forward, voice tightening. If you take that job, we're done. I'm not leaving Chicago. The words hung in the air like smoke from a fire I hadn't noticed spreading. For a long time, I just sat there, blinking at him, waiting for him to laugh, to say he didn't mean it. But he didn't. He just stared back, stone still, like a man who believed love was a contract with fixed terms. That night, I couldn't sleep. I watched the shadows move across our bedroom wall and thought about all the decisions that had led me here. The apartment, his choice, near his work. The vacations, always to see his parents or college friends. Even the car. He'd talked me out of the one I wanted because his dad said Subarus hold their value better. I'd told myself compromise was part of love, that bending didn't mean breaking, but lying there beside him, I realized I'd been shrinking for years, bit by bit, until there wasn't much left of me in this life at all. The ultimatum wasn't new. It was just the first time he'd said it out loud. The next morning, Daniel acted like nothing happened. He made coffee, scrolled the news, talked about a friend's engagement party next weekend. I watched him from across the kitchen and felt something I hadn't felt in a long time. Clarity. When he left for work, I opened my laptop and accepted the offer. My hands shook, but not from fear, from freedom. Then I called a moving service, arranged a sublease through a company contact, packed only what was mine: clothes, books, my laptop, a few framed photos. I left the furniture, the dishes, everything that had been ours, but never truly belonged to me. By evening, the apartment looked like a stage after the actors have gone home. Quiet, stripped, echoing. I placed an envelope on the kitchen counter, 2 months' rent, my key, and a letter that simply said, You told me if I took the job we were done. I believe you. I stood there for a moment, staring at the life I'd built around someone else's comfort. Then I picked up my bag, walked out, and didn't look back. At the airport, I sat by the window watching planes lift into the sky, each one disappearing into a horizon I hadn't let myself imagine in years. The boarding call came. I checked my phone. No messages. Not even a "where are you?" And that's when it hit me. He hadn't expected me to go. He'd expected me to stay. Because I always did. Because I always bent. The irony burned. The moment I stopped letting him control my decisions, he stopped seeing me as worth loving. Seattle was gray when I landed. Soft mist clinging to glass buildings. The kind of weather that made everything look like a clean slate. I checked into corporate housing, dropped my bags, and stood at the window. Below me, people hurried through puddles, umbrellas blooming open like dark flowers. I breathed in and felt something I hadn't in months. Possibility. I thought that was the end of the story. The hard part done, the healing ahead. But freedom doesn't end with walking away. Sometimes, that's where the war begins. That first week in Seattle, I sent Daniel a short text. Not to reopen the door, just to be decent. I hope you're okay. I left the apartment in good condition. The rent's paid for 2 months. Take care. He never replied. I told myself that was closure, but somewhere deep down I felt a chill, the kind that doesn't come from cold air, but from the silence of someone who isn't finished. At work, things moved fast. My new colleagues were sharp, kind, collaborative, the opposite of the subtle competition Daniel had always encouraged between us. For the first time in years, my ideas weren't filtered through someone else's ego. I started sleeping better, eating better, laughing again. And yet, late at night, I'd catch myself glancing at my phone, half expecting a storm to roll in. Because men like Daniel don't vanish, they restructure. And I didn't know it yet, but he was already rewriting our story, one I'd soon have to defend myself against. When someone gives you an ultimatum, they're not testing your love. They're measuring your obedience. And once you stop obeying, they find new ways to take control. The city lights outside shimmered against the window, distorted by drizzle. In their reflection, I almost didn't recognize the woman staring back. Stronger, quieter, free, but uneasy. Because endings that come too clean rarely stay that way. The rain in Seattle does this thing at night. It doesn't fall so much as breathe. A soft, steady exhale against glass. My first Sunday there, I cracked the window and let the cool air in while I built a grocery list on my phone and tried to believe that a quiet life could be this simple. Eggs, berries, coffee filters, peace. The notification buzzed while I was deciding between oat milk and whole. Daniel Morrison has posted a story. I stared at the screen. Habit made my thumb hover. Dignity made me put the phone down. I picked it up again anyway. Curiosity is just fear with good manners. A photo filled the screen. Smeared mascara, a rumpled gray blanket I recognized from our couch. His caption, "Sometimes you give 5 years to someone who was only ever passing through, building on quicksand." There was a second slide, a boomerang of an empty closet, the camera shaking slightly, as if filmed by someone crying. The words over it, "Financial abuse is real." I sat at the little dining table in corporate housing, listening to rain tap its soft coat against the city, and felt my stomach do that familiar lurch women know too well, the one that means someone is telling your story for you. I clicked out, locked the phone, unlocked it again. By morning, my mother had called twice. "Kara," she said as soon as I answered, voice small with worry, "I just got a message from Daniel's mother. She said you left him with nothing. Honey, did you—" I closed my eyes. "Mom, no. We never even had a joint account. We split everything. I left 2 months' rent and my key." Silence on the line, then the sound of her breath steadying. "That's what I thought. I told her there had to be more to the story. I don't like her tone." "She's repeating his tone," I said. "That's how this works." After we hung up, the messages kept arriving. Mutual friends who hadn't checked on me in months suddenly performing concern. "Hey, I don't want to pick sides, but he seems really hurt. Did you really drain him? You could have told him sooner." For a second, one dizzy, disorienting second, I questioned myself. It's astonishing how fast doubt grows in the dark. Then I opened my files. Venmo logs, meticulously labeled. Screenshots of bill splits. My bank statements. His message, "If you take that job, we're done." My reply, "Are you sure that's what you want?" His final, "Yes. I'm not leaving Chicago." I sat there and reread them like a prayer that rebuilds your spine. At work, I put the whole thing in a box at the edge of my mind and kept my hands busy. Data has a way of reminding you the world is measurable. Stories don't change the numbers. My team welcomed me, like I'd always been there. One of the engineers slid a mug of coffee onto my desk without comment. A researcher asked how I liked the drizzle, and I said it felt like an apology from the sky. We laughed. I almost believed everything would be fine. That afternoon, Emily texted, the mutual friend who never performed anything. "Emily, he's ramping up. Says you took money from his personal account?" Me, "That's impossible." Emily, "I asked for specifics. He pivoted to emotional investments. Figure you should know." I typed, deleted, typed again. Me, "Thank you for telling me. Please don't get pulled into it." Emily, "I won't. Also, proud of you." I thought that would be the worst of it. Whispers, posts, curated grief. But people who lose control don't stop. They rebrand. 3 days later, the envelope came. Thick, off-white, my new company's address typed neatly in black ink like a dare. Small claims. Court, complaint. Damages, $8,000. Emotional distress. Unpaid domestic partnership obligations. I stared at the words until they swam. Then I took the elevator to HR. The head of legal was a woman with calm eyes and a pen that clicked softly in her hand as she read. "We can't represent you," she said, "but we can advise." She glanced up. "On the face, this is flimsy. Do you have documentation?" "I kept everything," I said, and her mouth did this almost smile, the kind women give other women when the worst is predictable and you prepared anyway. That night, I couldn't pretend anymore. I sat in the dark with every light off, the city a watercolor blur beyond the glass, the file open on my laptop like a wound. I played the old messages between Daniel and me, the ones where love sounded like logistics and control sounded like concern. "You're overreacting, Kara. You're making this harder than it needs to be. Long distance ruins people. I'm protecting us. If you loved me, you wouldn't ask me to change my life." Memory is a talented liar. Screenshots are not. My phone buzzed again. Another story. This time, a carefully composed photo of our dining table. His table now, with 2 chairs and 1 place set. Caption: "Silence is a kind of theft." There were comments too. Friends of his mother, the usual chorus. Men give and give. Women take and run. And beneath them, a quiet one from Emily. Or maybe men give ultimatums and call it love. It had one like, from an account I didn't recognize. A woman with a private profile and a first name I'd never heard. Maya. I told myself it didn't matter. I told myself this was noise. But at midnight, when even the rain had tired of its own voice, I realized I was waiting for the next hit. That was the worst part. Not the lies, but the drumbeat of anticipation. What will he do next? How deep will he go? The answer arrived the following afternoon when my mother called again, this time rattled. "He came by the house," she said, "sat on the porch. He said he needed me to understand the truth about you." I left my desk and stood in the stairwell, holding the phone against concrete like it needed the support. "What did he say?" "That you manipulated him, that you controlled his finances, that you isolated him from friends. I told him to leave. Then I called you." "I'll send you the texts," I said, already attaching the ultimatum screenshot to an email. "You don't have to engage. Block his number. If he shows up again, call the police." She hesitated. He seemed rehearsed, like he'd told the story many times already. He had. That's how narratives become credible. Repetition plus desperation. After the call, I forwarded the screenshot to myself again, like a lighthouse beam looping back over a dangerous shoreline. Then I emailed it to legal with a note. Evidence attached. Small claims. Prepared. My fingers steadied as I typed. Something inside me had shifted from fear to focus. This wasn't love anymore. It was a project with deliverables. Show up, tell the truth, survive. That evening, a message from my old boss hit my inbox. The subject line made my stomach drop. A call from Daniel. "Hey, Kara. He reached out to me today. Said some things about your character that didn't align with the person I worked with for 4 years. I wanted you to know I shut it down. If you're open to occasional remote consulting, we'd love your expertise. Proud of you for taking the leap." I laughed, a short, startled sound, and then I cried because that's what relief does when it finally finds a door unlocked. When the court date was set, I bought a ticket back to Chicago. The city name on the itinerary looked like a bruise I was choosing to press. Before I shut my laptop, I opened his profile one more time. New story. A photo of a skyline, mine, taken from across the water. Some people run. Some of us rebuild. The threat was that he'd learned I wasn't running. The comfort was that I didn't have to anymore. On my last night before the flight, I walked to the pier. The water was ink black and glassy, the air smelling faintly of salt and possibility. Couples passed by, with hands tucked into each other like anchors. I leaned against the rail and tried to name what I was feeling. Not fear, not quite anger, something older. Something like grief for the version of me who mistook being chosen for being safe. A woman stopped beside me to take a photo of the skyline. She glanced over, friendly. "Best view in the city," she said. "It is," I answered, surprise. Chicago looked different now. Smaller. Colder. Like a city I'd already outgrown, but still had to visit for unfinished business. The cab dropped me off in front of the courthouse just as snow began to fall, thin, restless flakes swirling in the gray wind. I stood there for a moment, clutching my folder to my chest, staring up at the stone building that somehow managed to look both ancient and judgmental. This wasn't how I'd imagined coming home. Inside, the courthouse buzzed with the usual noise of bureaucracy: clacking heels, murmured conversations, the soft shuffle of people waiting for justice that would never feel like enough. I followed the posted signs until I reached Small Claims Courtroom B. The name almost made me laugh. Small claims, but the damage here wasn't small at all. I sat in the second row, gripping my folder, my entire side of the story reduced to paper and ink. Venmo logs, bank statements, screenshots of the ultimatum. My company's legal advisor had said, "You don't need to fight emotion with emotion. Just show the truth." Then the door opened. Daniel walked in. He looked like a shadow of himself, thinner, eyes a little too bright, dressed too sharply for someone trying to appear calm. His father trailed close behind, holding a thick binder that could have passed for a college dissertation. Daniel didn't look at me, but I felt his presence like static in the air. When the clerk called our names, his voice was confident, almost theatrical. "Your Honor, my client is Mr. Daniel Morrison, representing himself in a claim of emotional and financial damages caused by Miss Kara Miller." The judge, an older man with weary eyes, nodded. "Mr. Morrison, you may begin." Daniel walked to the front like he'd been waiting for this performance his entire life. "Your Honor," he began, voice steady but trembling at the edges, "I gave Kara everything. I supported her through grad school, through promotions, through self-doubt. I paid more than my share of rent, groceries, trips. I believed in her, and one day she just disappeared." He paused, swallowing. "She left me with nothing. She drained our savings, our life, our future." I blinked slowly. "Our savings? We'd never had a joint account. She told me she loved me," he continued, "but the moment she got a better opportunity, she walked away. I'm asking for fair compensation for emotional distress and unpaid domestic partnership obligations." His father nodded approvingly from the seat behind him, lips pursed in righteous agreement. The judge leaned forward, tone neutral. "Mr. Morrison, do you have documentation proving financial dependency or shared accounts?" Daniel hesitated, flipping through his binder. "We didn't have joint accounts, but we had an understanding." The judge interrupted gently. "An understanding isn't a contract. Do you have anything written?" "Well, no. But she promised she'd take care of us when she got the director position. That's an implied agreement." The judge sighed. "Implied agreements don't carry legal weight without corroboration." That's when Daniel's father shot up, voice booming. "Your Honor, this is about moral responsibility. When a man invests 5 years in a woman—" "Sir," the judge said sharply, "you're not a party to this case. Please sit down or you'll be removed." His father grumbled, but obeyed. Daniel's hands were trembling now, flipping pages for the sake of movement. When it was my turn, I stood slowly. The courtroom felt smaller, the air thicker, every eye on me. "Miss Miller," the judge said, "you may respond." I walked to the bench and placed my folder down. "Your Honor, we split every expense 50-50. Rent, utilities, travel, everything. Here are the records from our Venmo transfers, along with separate bank statements." I slid the papers forward. "Here's proof of the 2 months' rent I left behind when I moved out. And this," I said, pulling up my phone, "is the text thread where he ended our relationship." The judge adjusted his glasses. "Please read it." My voice didn't waver. "Daniel, if you take that job, we're done. I'm not leaving Chicago." Me. "Are you serious?" Daniel. "Yes, I won't do long distance." The judge turned toward him. "Mr. Morrison, is this your number?" Daniel stared at the screen, jaw tight. "Yes." "And you sent these messages?" "Yes, but I didn't mean—" The judge cut him off. "The meaning is clear. You issued an ultimatum. She accepted it. Case dismissed." It took less than 5 seconds. Just like that, months of chaos dissolved into silence. For a moment, Daniel didn't move. Then, like a dam breaking, he exploded. "You're taking her side because she's a woman," he shouted. "This is what's wrong with the system. She used me, and now she's walking away like she's some kind of victim." The judge stood. "Mr. Morrison, control yourself." But Daniel kept going, his voice cracking. "She made me believe we had a future. She made me give everything." "Enough," the judge said. "This hearing is over." Security stepped forward. His father grabbed his arm, whispering something, but Daniel jerked away and pointed at me. "You'll regret this, Kara. You can't rewrite what happened." Then he was gone. The door slammed, echoing through the room. I stood there, still, my heart pounding in my chest like it was trying to catch up to my freedom. Outside, the winter wind hit my face, sharp but cleansing. I sat on the courthouse steps, folder beside me, watching the snow turn to slush on the concrete. 15 minutes. That's how long it had taken to reclaim my name. When my phone buzzed, I already knew who it was. Emily? Her voice crackled through. Tell me you won. Case dismissed. She exhaled. Good. But Kara, be careful. He's not the kind of man who takes losing quietly. I know. We hung up, and for the first time in months, I didn't feel the need to defend myself. I'd already won the only thing that mattered, the truth. Before my flight back to Seattle, I met Emily at a cafe near the river. The windows fogged with warmth, and the smell of cinnamon drifted through the air. The same cafe Daniel and I had visited once, back when we still pretended compromise was love. Emily stirred her coffee, hesitating. There's something you need to know. I braced myself. What? He's been calling your old boss, trying to get you blacklisted. Said you were unstable, that you lied about your qualifications. I blinked. You're kidding. No, but don't panic. Your boss called me. Said Daniel's story didn't add up. He told me, if anything, this makes me want to hire Kara again. He said if you ever wanted contract work, you could reach out. For a moment, I couldn't speak. The irony was almost poetic. Thank you, I said softly. Emily smiled. Truth wins slower, but it lasts longer. That night, I boarded my flight home. As the plane climbed through the clouds, I looked down at the city, the place where I'd loved, compromised, and almost lost myself. My phone vibrated once in my hand, a new message from Daniel. You humiliated me today. I'll make sure you regret it. I stared at it for a long moment, then deleted it without reading it again. The reflection in the window stared back, tired, calm, changed. Kara, voiceover. There's a strange kind of peace that comes after truth. It's not victory, it's clarity, and clarity doesn't shout. It just waits for the noise to fade. I turned off my phone, closed my eyes, and leaned back into the hum of the engine. Somewhere below, Chicago disappeared beneath a sea of clouds. Shoal, gray, irrelevant. Ahead was Seattle, my new life, my new chapter. And this time, I wouldn't let anyone rewrite my story but me. Seattle was quiet that morning, too quiet. The kind of gray stillness that comes right before a storm, the kind that makes you think the air is holding its breath. I'd been back for a week since the court hearing. Work was smooth, my team had celebrated a small project win, and my new life finally felt stable. Normal even. But normal doesn't last when someone like Daniel refuses to let go. It started small, an email to HR, anonymous but transparent enough to trace back. Allegations of ethical misconduct. HR called me in, politely concerned. They'd already confirmed the claims were unfounded, but still, the meeting left a bitter taste. Then came the calls to old colleagues, the LinkedIn message from someone in Chicago. Hey, Kara, just a heads up. Your ex is telling people you used him to get where you are. The old me would have panicked. The new me just blocked his number. Again. But Daniel didn't need access to my phone to find me. Because 2 weeks later, he was standing outside my apartment building. It was a Saturday morning. I was making coffee, hair still messy from sleep, when my phone buzzed with the doorman's call. Ms. Miller, there's someone here asking for you. Says it's personal. My stomach dropped. What's his name? Daniel Morrison. For a moment, I said nothing. My heartbeat filled the silence. Tell him I'm not available, I said finally. Already did. He says he'll wait. I stood there, staring at my reflection in the black glass of the coffee machine. Hair undone, sweatshirt wrinkled, eyes tired but alert. The truth was, part of me had been waiting for this. The final confrontation. The last flicker of control he still believed he had. An hour later, I walked down. He was leaning against the railing outside, wearing the same gray coat he'd worn to court. Expensive, pressed, performative. His eyes lit up when he saw me, the way someone lights up at the sight of a prize they think they can still win. Kara, he said, as if nothing had happened. You look good. I crossed my arms. What are you doing here, Daniel? I wanted to talk, face to face. You never answered my messages. Because there's nothing left to say. He smiled, but it didn't reach his eyes. That's not true. We were together for 5 years. You don't just erase that. I didn't erase it, I said evenly. You rewrote it. He took a step closer. Come on. We were both emotional. I didn't mean everything I said. You sued me, I reminded him. You showed up in court with your father and called me a thief. His expression faltered for half a second before he steadied it again. That wasn't about hate, Kara. That was about pain. You humiliated me. I needed closure. Closure doesn't require false accusations. He exhaled sharply. I was testing you. I blinked. Testing me? I wanted to see if you'd fight for us. A hollow laugh escaped my throat. You filed a lawsuit to test my loyalty? He didn't answer. He just looked at me, searching, pleading, the same way he had the night he gave me the ultimatum. The same manipulative tilt of his head, like he was inviting guilt to sit beside me again. Kara, we can start over, he said softly. I could move here. You're doing well. I'm proud of you. We could find a place together. Rebuild. Rebuild? I cut him off. You burned everything down. You don't get to rebuild on ashes you made. He clenched his jaw, eyes darkening. You owe me something. You don't get to waste 5 years of my life and walk away. I took a breath, steady. You didn't lose 5 years, Daniel. You spent them controlling someone who finally stopped letting you. That hit. He flinched. For a long moment, we just stood there, the city around us humming faintly, the sky heavy with rain that hadn't yet fallen. Then he changed. The softness dropped, replaced by the voice I remembered too well, the one he used when he was cornered. Fine, he said. If that's how it is, I'll make sure everyone here knows who you really are. I'll talk to your coworkers, your boss. You think you can just start fresh? You can't outrun who you are. Something in me finally went still. I met his eyes and said quietly, You're right, Daniel. I can't outrun who I am, but you're the one running from who you are. He laughed, sharp, bitter. You think people will believe you over me? I don't need them to believe me, I said. They'll see you for themselves. That was when a voice called out from behind me. Kara? I turned. Maya stood at the corner of the street, holding 2 cups of coffee, confusion flickering across her face. She was early for our brunch. I saw Daniel's expression shift instantly. Recognition, disbelief, and then anger. He looked at Maya the way a magician looks at an audience member who ruins his trick. This him? Maya asked gently, stepping closer. This is Daniel, I said, my voice steady. My past. Daniel stared at her, then at me. Wow, he muttered. You moved on fast. Maya raised an eyebrow. Fast. She's been healing. There's a difference. Daniel sneered. Of course. You must be the new project. She'll fix you too, until you stop following her rules. Maya's tone didn't waver. You know what's funny? Healthy people don't call respect rules. He laughed, low, sharp. Good luck, you'll need it. Then he turned back to me. His voice dropped, cold. You'll regret this, Kara. I held his gaze. I already regretted loving you. I don't have any left to give. For a moment, he looked at me. Truly looked. The mask cracked. Behind it, I saw something small and frightened. Then he turned and walked away, shoulders tight, the rain finally beginning to fall. We stood there for a while after he disappeared down the street. The sound of the drizzle softened the edges of everything, the tension, the adrenaline, the years. Maya handed me one of the coffees. You okay? I nodded, exhaling. Yeah, I think I finally am. She smiled, tucking a strand of hair behind her ear. He won't stop immediately. But men like that, they burn their own bridges while blaming the smoke. I laughed quietly. You sound like you've lived through this before. Once, she said. The trick isn't escaping them. It's not letting them follow you into your next life. We walked back inside together, the elevator humming softly as it climbed. For the first time in years, I didn't feel watched. I didn't feel measured. I felt free. That night, I stood by my window, watching the city shimmer through the rain. Voiceover, Kara. Some people think control is love. They hold you tight enough to call it protection, until you stop breathing. But real love doesn't hold you hostage. It opens the door and says, go chase the life you deserve. Down below, cars passed through the wet streets, their headlights streaking gold across puddles. Somewhere, Daniel was probably already spinning another story, but for once, I didn't care. Because I had my own, and it didn't include him. It's strange, the silence that follows chaos. When you've spent so long bracing for the next explosion, peace feels suspicious. Seattle moved on, as it always does. The city doesn't pause for heartbreak. It hums, it rains, it heals. And somehow, I started to heal with it. It's been 3 months since Daniel showed up at my building. 3 months since that final confrontation. He never came back, never called, never messaged. For a while, I kept waiting for another shoe to drop. A rumor, a smear, another anonymous tip. But none came. Eventually, even the tension in my shoulders stopped waiting too. My life settled into rhythm. Morning started with the smell of coffee and sea air drifting through the window. I'd walk to work along the pier, passing the same fishermen who always nodded at me like we were part of the same quiet club, the I Survive Something Club. At work, my projects flourished. I was no longer the woman trying to prove she belonged. I was there, fully, present, confident. Maya became my constant. Not a savior. I'd stopped needing one, but a mirror. She showed me what partnership looks like when power isn't the currency. She'd leave little sticky notes on my monitor. Proud of you. Breathe before meetings. You deserve your own timeline. One night after dinner, she said something I'll never forget. You know, she murmured, tracing her finger along the edge of her wineglass. The first time you told me about him, I thought, she's still waiting for permission to move on. I looked at her. Maybe I was. And now? Now I don't need permission. Maya smiled. Good, because no one gets to edit your story anymore. But even peace has ghosts. One rainy Sunday morning, Emily texted me a screenshot. Daniel's Instagram. His bio now read, Survivor. Rebuilding from toxicity. Learning to trust again. His newest photo, a mirror selfie with some woman half embracing him from behind. The caption, she taught me what real love feels like, finally safe after the storm. I stared at the image for a long time, not with anger, not even with pity, just understanding. People like Daniel don't change, they rebrand. He wasn't healing, he was performing. And that used to make me furious, how easy it was for him to rewrite truth like changing fonts. But now, I just close the app. Because the thing about control is, once you stop reacting to it, it loses its audience. A few weeks later, I got a call from HR. Hey, Kara, there's an article going around on professional resilience. We'd love for you to share your experience. Leadership through adversity, starting over. No personal names, of course. I laughed softly. You want me to write about surviving a storm without naming the hurricane? She chuckled. Exactly. So I did. I wrote. Not about Daniel, not about revenge, but about freedom. About how sometimes the hardest part of reclaiming your life isn't leaving. It's believing you deserve what's left after you do. The article went viral on LinkedIn. Hundreds of women messaged me stories of their own, leaving controlling partners, manipulative bosses, suffocating expectations. It wasn't about pity, it was about proof. One woman wrote, reading this felt like exhaling after years of holding my breath. I cried reading that, because that's exactly what it felt like for me too. A month later, I moved again. Not out of fear, out of choice. A new apartment overlooking the sound, floor-to-ceiling windows, soft gray walls that reflected morning light like peace itself. The first night there, I unpacked one box, my books, and left the rest for later. I poured a glass of wine and stood by the window as the city shimmered below. Seattle glittered, like it forgave me for ever thinking I didn't belong here. My phone buzzed, a new message, unknown number. For a moment, my heart skipped, that old reflex. But it wasn't Daniel, it was Emily. Emily. Guess who just moved to Austin? Your ghost finally left town. Me. Good for him. Emily. You okay? Me. Yeah, I really am this time. I put the phone down, smiling. The kind that starts small and ends somewhere deep. Later, Maya came over. We ordered takeout, sat on the floor surrounded by half-unpacked boxes, laughing about nothing and everything. At some point, she leaned her head against my shoulder and said quietly, You know, I think the most dangerous kind of control is the one that feels like love. I nodded. Because you don't see it until it's already holding you. And when you break free, she added, you start mistaking peace for emptiness. Until you realize peace isn't empty, I said softly. It's just quiet. We sat there in that quiet, the sound of the rain against the windows steady and kind. Kara, voiceover. When someone gives you an ultimatum, believe them. They've already decided that their love is conditional. They've already chosen control over compromise. The right person doesn't make you smaller to feel safe. The right person says, this is scary, but I'll walk beside you anyway. I used to think choosing myself meant losing someone, but now I know. It means keeping the one person I should have never given away. Months later, on an ordinary Tuesday, I walked into the office and found an email waiting for me. Subject line, Phase 2 approved. The project, the one I'd left everything for, had been greenlit. My team erupted in cheers. I stood there for a second, overwhelmed, watching the future unfold exactly the way it was supposed to. And then, out of habit, I turned toward the window. Seattle stretched wide beneath me, blue-gray and endless. A seagull cut through the clouds, wings slicing the air with effortless confidence. Voiceover. Freedom doesn't always announce itself. Sometimes it's just waking up one morning and realizing no one gets to decide your life but you. I smiled, not because everything was perfect, but because it was mine. That night, I walked home under the soft drizzle, every streetlight painting gold halos across wet pavement. My reflection followed beside me, older, wiser, lighter. I reached my building, took the elevator up, and before stepping inside, I looked out one last time. The city glittered. The past was distant. The air smelled like salt and renewal.